Mike here at Gearhead Workspace, and, right down here on 31st Street in Chicago. Get all the tools, all the expertise you need to work on your own car by the hour, by the month, by the year. What we're doing right now is we have a General Motors 3.6 liter direct injected V6. It's a pretty common motor that's coming out these days in a lot of different GM cars. It started out in the Cadillacs. It's made its way into the Buick Enclave, the GMC Acadia, and the last generation Impalas. It's in the Chevy Colorado truck. It's going to be in everything. Like I said, this is a direct injected motor that's different from the port injected motors that we've been using for the last 20 years or so. What that means is that you have direct injection. Direct injection is different from port injection. Port injection sprays the fuel into the intake port right above the intake valves. Direct injection doesn't do that. It's more like a diesel engine. It sprays the fuel directly into the cylinder. The advantage is better fuel economy, more power on less fuel. There was one main disadvantage to this though, and what can happen, especially in some of these first generation motors, is that you can get a lot of gum and gunk and carbon built up on the intake valves. Because again, unlike port injection, it's not getting that constant spray of gasoline, cleaning it up on every stroke. So what we're going to do today is we have Cadillac STS. It's got the 3.6 in it. We're going to go ahead and pop the intake off, and we're going to do a manual cleaning of those valves. So if you bear with me here, I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to get you your lost fuel economy back. We're going to get you lost power back. And this again is a job you can do yourself. It's not that complicated, and you come down here to Gearhead. We can show you how to do it. We've got all the tools to help you do it with, and hopefully this helps out. So bear with me, and we're going to get started. Okay, so we are just about to get started today, and we're going to do an intake valve and intake port clean. This is the General Motors 3.6 liter V6. It's looking a little blurry here, but hopefully that'll clear right up. I've gone ahead and removed the plastic cover that covers the engine up. It's just a dressing. It doesn't really do anything. And what we're going to do is we're going to take off this intake manifold. To do that, we're going to have to move a couple of hoses, the PCV valve. We're going to move up here. You're going to see that's the plastic cover that covers up the windshield wiper operation and all that. That's going to come off. That's just going to help us get to the back of this intake manifold. This is going to come off. It's going to expose the intake ports, and we're going to go ahead and do a manual cleaning on those. So once you get down to this level, and like I said, you're going to find this motor in several different GM cars. Some of them are going to be transverse. Some of them are longitudinal, like this one, if you've got a rear-wheel drive car or truck. So it kind of depends just on which motor you have. So that beginning part can be a little bit different. But once you get to this point, it's going to be pretty much the same. So what we're going to do to start out is up here, there's 6 bolts that are going to come out of here. They're 13 millimeter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, another one in the back. That's going to make 6. And we're going to pop that baby off. But the first thing we're going to do is remove this plastic cover here. That's just going to help us get to the back of that. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'll be right back with you. Okay, so as you can see, we've gone ahead and we have removed all this plastic covering here. We've removed the wiper arms. There are 3 7 millimeter bolts that come out there. There's a couple of clips over here, and that just kind of slides right out. And like I said, that's going to vary depending on your car. I know a lot of the Cadillacs are set up this way, but it could be a transverse motor. You might not need to do that at all. What we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our 13 millimeter socket and we're going to loosen up the bolts that hold down this intake. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a 6th back there. Come around, I'll show you that one. That sucker's hiding right back there. So we're going to go ahead and loosen those up. I'll be right back. Okay, so we've got our bolts out. They're on the table right here. And you want to make sure you're being careful with those because they are not all the same length. The 4 that go in here are longer. The one here and the one in back are shorter. So set those up so you remember where they go. Your PCV valve is going to pop right out from here. That pops right out. We're going to go ahead and take back our intake boot. We've also got a breather right here. There's another hose clamp here. I'm going to go ahead and take this right off, take it out, put it on the bench. That baby's going to be out of our way. And then over here, you've got another hose that connects to the intake right here. That comes off. And what you've also got back here is there's 2 more bolts. There's one here, and if you can see it, there's another one right here. Those are going to have to come out too. Then right over here, we have, this is the main wiring for our throttle. That's going to have to be disconnected as well. And that actually has a plug on it down underneath. It's this big blue and black thing right here. You have to kind of reach in behind there. I'm not going to be able to do it while I hold the camera, but you get the idea. And then over here, there's just one clamp that holds this. We're going to take that out too, so that's out of our way. Okay, so we've got those 2 bolts that come in this way from the back. Now you're going to look back up here by your throttle body right here. There's 2 more. These are 10 millimeter. These both have to come out. And once we do that, we should be able to lift this baby right off. Okay. Now this is what your motor is going to look like with that intake lifted off. You want to make sure that, again, you connect this, or I should say disconnect this. It's got a little tab on it that you can push in on, or I like to usually take a screwdriver and push it in from this side. It helps if you kind of get the intake up and then forward a little bit. It's a lot easier to do. There's another little clip here for the wiring harness. You can see that just pulls right out. Again, your application may vary. Now what you have up here are your intake ports, and this brown piece here is your intake gasket. Now what you want to do is very carefully lift this up. You can reuse this as long as you don't break it, but it can be a little bit brittle, so you want to take your time bringing it up, a little piece at a time, make sure nothing's stuck. We're going to go ahead and do that, and we'll be right back with you. Now, as you can see, this is actually a foam piece. The gasket sits on top of that foam, so sometimes the gasket will come up, sometimes it's a little stuck. I just took the whole foam piece right with it, and we're just going to leave it like that. Then if you come back here, you're going to see these are your intake ports. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a firing order on a GM motor. And then down in this valley here, these are your fuel pressure regulator. These are your fuel rails, and your direct injectors actually mount down underneath all of these. Now this particular car has an issue with a bad injector, so we are going to go ahead in the next video and pull those fuel rails. But right now we're going to focus on getting those intake ports clean. Now as you can, I'm going to try to show you here what we're looking at. You can see down in there, those are your intake valves. And this light is killing me here. And you can see it's pretty gummy and dirty down in there. That is something that you don't want. So what we're going to do is go ahead and clean those up. That's going to restore a lot of fuel economy and power to this motor. Now the way we're going to do that is we're going to get ourselves a 19 millimeter socket, which, let's see, almost, it's going to be that one. We're going to get ourselves a nice big old ratchet. So we've got ourselves our 19 millimeter socket. We're going to put that down on the old crank here. And that's going to let us turn the motor. Now what we need to do is get each cylinder to top dead center so both of those valves are closed when we do this. You don't want to have those valves open because if you do, you can knock that gunk right down into your cylinder. It's going to cause cylinder scoring. It's bad news for your motor. So a couple of things first. What you want to do is do these sequentially. And you're just going to take a rag, you can take some tape, whatever, and we're going to stuff all these holes full except the one that we're working on. We're going to use a shop vac. We're going to vac up everything nice here, make sure there's no dirt, no debris. And we're going to keep using that shop vac as we go along to kind of suck that junk out of there. We're going to use a couple of different tools. We're going to use a regular flat screwdriver. We're going to use a set of engine brushes that I picked up at Harbor Freight for $16.99, where you can use those with a rotary drill. And that's going to help us get all that junk out of there. So here we go. Okay, so what we have here, got a set of brushes. These are from, like I said, Harbor Freight. They're going to run you about 15, 20 bucks at Harbor Freight. You get brass, you get steel, you get nylon. We're going to use the brass for the most part, just because it's going to give you a little bit better scouring power than nylon, but it's not quite as hard on the steel that's in there. I've seen guys do this with stainless steel brushes, steel brushes, and you're going to scratch up a little bit of what's going on in there, but your valves and the seats are hardened steel, so you're not going to do any damage doing that. We've also got some mineral spirits. We've got a little tub. We're going to use that to periodically clean the gunk off these brushes because they're going to get pretty dirty. Then we've got this nice piece right here. We're going to be able to put this into our drill, like so. Brush goes in the end, like so. We're going to be able to put that into the intake port. I'll just kind of show you what we're going to do. As you can see, now we've got these blocked off. So we can see we've got this blocked off now. I like to use this blue painter's tape. I feel that works pretty well. You just kind of stick that over there. But we've got a rag down in the number 2. And we've gone ahead, we've turned the engine, so we've got our valves at top dead center, which, if I had a flashlight, you can see down in there, but I don't. What we're going to do is take our drill and this brush. We're going to start manually, and we're going to go in with the brush, just kind of work that around, get it in there good. And as you can see, it's already coming up pretty black and grimy. So we're going to work this one, get it nice and clean. Then we're going to turn the motor. Make sure our valves are at top dead center on the next cylinder. We're going to do the next, and we're going to work our way through to all 6 of them, and make sure we're all nice and clean. And so we're going to use those mineral spirits to clean these brushes off. Periodically, at the end of each hole, we're going to use the shop vac to vac that out, and then finally we're going to blow it out with compressed air just to make sure that we don't have any debris in that intake port, because you do not want to get debris sucked down into the cylinder. That's a big no. All right, so we're about halfway through here and still getting a pretty good amount of gunk on this brush, but I found going in there with a long screwdriver and this nice little tool that I made here out of a piece of fence wire, it's just doing a better job getting the deposits out. They're kind of gummy, they kind of come out in little bits. But you can see on my rag here where I've been wiping them that that's just from 2 cylinders, folks, and that's quite a bit of gunk. So we're talking about a pretty serious restriction to the intake. So we're going to keep on going. We're on the last cylinder on the right-hand bank. We're going to finish that one up. Then we're going to move over to the driver's side bank, and we're going to finish this up. But like I said, it's going to vary, with the engine that you have. Some might be a little harder, some might be a little bit more gummy, but just use your imagination, get in there, and it's kind of like going to the dentist. You got to pick all that plaque off and endure the pain to get the good results. So we'll be back with you when we get to the end of this one. Okay, folks, so we've gone through all 6 cylinders and found on this motor that going through just with the long flat screwdriver and the pick works a little bit better than trying to do it with the rotary brush. I did use the hand attachment on this brush, and you can see we get quite a bit of gunk from that, and on this brush too. And this is just all the gunk that we got wiped off on the rag that we took out with the screwdriver, but then a lot more goes in with the shop vac. And what you do on that is you just kind of work it loose, and you'll kind of work these deposits loose, and you want to go in, take your shop vac hose with one hand, hold it over the cylinder port, take your blowgun, stick it down in there, and just really blow some air in there, and it'll get all those loose deposits, blow them up. The shop vac sucks them right out. And that's pretty much how it goes. And so if you join us for our next video, we're going to be doing the injectors on this baby, and then we're going to be all set to go. If this is where you get off, if all you need is the carbon clean from your intake valves, go ahead, and the assembly is going to be the reverse of how we took it apart. You're going to set that intake manifold gasket back on there nice and careful, make sure everything's straight. Set the intake on top of that. Go ahead and make all your electrical connections, all your vacuum connections. Make sure you put those bolts back down in the correct order, because like you said, it's they're not all the same length, so if you didn't take them out in the right order, hopefully you did, but it's those 4 in the middle are the same length, and then there's a shorter one on the front and a shorter one on the rear. And torque those down to spec. I'll put the torque specs down in the description section, and you should be good to go. So once again, this is Mike at Gearhead Workspace. We're down at 305 West 31st Street in Chicago. We've got all the stuff to help you do this and more, so come on down with your project and we will get you going. Hope to see you soon. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.